Mike O'Neill is standing by, Vice President, Legal Affairs, Landmark Legal Foundation. Love having him on the show because I ask a question and he just goes with it, and he knows what's going on. Hi, Mike.
Hey, Fawn. It's always a pleasure to be with you. How are you today?
I love having you on the show. I'm doing good. Thank you. This judicial gerrymandering that's going on, it's just activism. It's not even something that matters. They're doing it just to be jerks. And I don't know how a lower court judge, and we talked about this last time, but I just need to get this out of my system. They need to stay in their lane.
Absolutely.
They're driving me nuts.
Absolutely. And it's unceasing and unending. It's almost, we've had kind of, what are we at, Thursday of this week? So we've actually, at least from my perspective, and I'm probably missing some things, but nothing in the past day or so, nothing has come up to my attention, so I've come onto my radar. But last week was Fast and Furious, and earlier this week was Fast and Furious. I mean, the one that stands out the most with me, and this is really emblematic of the activism we're talking about, the degree of activism, is this district court up in Massachusetts. What happened here is, and you probably have heard of it, I don't know if you've touched on it a little bit, but when the Congress enacted the big, beautiful bill, they had cuts to Planned Parenthood. You know, we all know Planned Parenthood receives tax dollars. It's absurd that they receive our tax dollars. Mm-hmm. Well, Congress finally got their act together this term and cut the hundreds of millions. I think it's close to $1 billion. It's easily $600 or $700, maybe $800 million of our tax dollars goes to fund Planned Parenthood, and we know where that money goes. They say that it doesn't go to fund abortions, but of course, money's fungible. We know every dollar they can offset with the money that they receive in our tax dollars goes to somewhere else, to funding abortions. So we know how this money's spent. But finally, Congress got their act together. Right, we've been calling for this for years. Got their act together and cut this funding. Well, what happened? Planned Parenthood understands that, hey, we can go to court. It's a veritable buffet of activism from these judges this term right now, and we can go to court and we can see if we can restore our federal funding via a judicial order. And lo and behold, in a short, Planned Parenthood, I think their complaint, they were making all kinds of allegations, but their complaint was about 53 pages, almost instantaneously. We don't have hours, timestamps on how quickly the judge issued this order, but within the same day, so we're talking about hours, a judge issued a couple-page temporary restraining order ordering the Department of Health and Human Services to continue to fund Planned Parenthood, despite the fact that a law had been enacted, again, of an appropriations bill. This is a law. Big, beautiful bill is a law signed by the president, enacted by Congress, defunding Planned Parenthood. So in contravention of a law, so what happens here? Why is this something that I'm talking about? Why is this abhorrent? Well, it's abhorrent because it's an escalation of the lawfare, Fawn. It's simply not enough that a judge says to an executive branch or the president of the United States, which is bad in of itself. But now you're seeing that the acts of Congress. You're seeing the judges appropriating the role of the legislature, the Article I power of Congress. And, of course, this is a core power of Congress to determine how our tax dollars are spent. So you have one district court judge saying that Congress is wrong in how they allocate our tax dollars and ordering the Department of Health and Human Services to continue to fund Planned Parenthood. That is judicial activism on an uber scale, undreamt of and unheard of in my mind.
And unnecessary, because
absolutely
it's not going to work anyway. It's just a waste of tax dollars and time.
But what does it do? Yeah, what does it do? It drags the process, and this is the end goal here. Axios had a report today that oftentimes when these cases migrate up to the Supreme Court on the shadow docket or the emergency docket, you see the Supreme Court ruling in favor of the administration. I mean, just this week you saw a decision about Department of Education employees that could be terminated. So when these cases get up to the Supreme Court, again, more often than not, you're seeing the administration succeed because, as you just said, Fawn, that for what? Well, what's the deal? To strain the system, to drag out the process, to ensure that they can delay implementation of the agenda of the Trump administration, which, again, I assert to you is the agenda of the American people because Donald Trump was the duly elected president of the United States. And so, but the goal here is to overwhelm the court, overwhelm the Supreme Court, drag out the implementation of the agenda, see how long they can drag this out before they can move on to something else.
And, it's funny because when Biden was president, we just despised him because we knew he wasn't even in there.
Right.
You know, people would say, that's not my president. And the Democrats are like, oh, yes, he is. Deal with it. He won the election. But now they're all online going, this is not my president. I'm like, ooh, let me come back at you with your own words. Because, yes, he is. And he's righting all the wrongs your dip dunk did while he was in there. And I love that, you know, he did it with executive orders so they can be undone. Yep. But what worries me is that if we get a turnaround and we get another idiot in there like Biden, that they're going to undo all the good stuff that's been done with executive orders. So I want more legislative action on this stuff.
Yeah, that's a fantastic point, and that was why it was so necessary. And again, I have an instinctual aversion to the omnibus spending bills that Congress acts. I think I probably said this to you before, but I hate the fact when we have these thousands of pages of appropriations bills just because of all the mischievous things that Congress, all the goodies that can be inserted in there that don't get the necessary attention. Look at what happened at the end of the Biden administration when you saw billions of dollars go out the door for all these NGOs. But the big, beautiful bill had to be enacted by Congress, and again, you had to have permanency to the tax cuts. You had to have permanency again to funding for border enforcement. You had to have funding for defense to ensure that our military could compete on the global stage. So this was a necessary act. Furthermore, I think the rescissions, and I think one just got through the Senate now. You're seeing Congress utilizing its rescission power to scroll back and roll back some of these expenditures that were identified, these waste, fraud, and abuse expenditures that were identified by the DOJ people. So that was an important task and effort that was undertaken in the first 6 months of the administration. Now you need to see Congress. You need to volley it over to Congress. The ball's there in court. Now they need to identify some of those waste, fraud, and abuse and actually utilize the rescission power to roll back those expenditures. And again, by doing that, you're ensuring that I shouldn't say that you're ensuring until you find a court up in Massachusetts that's willing to find this somehow unconstitutional. But you're lending legal credence to the actual to the rolling back of all of these insane policies and procedures that were put in by the previous administration. So. Mm-hmm.
And and it's not just Planned Parenthood. It's on stuff that why are they trying to stop the immigration thing? Do they not understand what sovereignty is? I know we have a lot of idiots who didn't study any sort of history or what the Constitution means in school. We've got a lot of them, and they can't even tell you if Puerto Rico is a territory. They can't tell you how many stars are on the flag, but they want to scream and yell about how we're a country of immigrants. Melania is an immigrant. I'm like, Melania could tell you in 6 languages why she's legal. You're so stupid you don't even know how to get legal. But they don't understand you can't just come here and live off of other people. Right. That's why we have funds going insolvent, all these sorts of things. So I don't know how we aren't completely united on the immigration front.
Yeah, and it's funny, Fawn. I generally think we are in at base. You just don't hear as much about it because you have the apparatchiks in the media that amplify the minority. And I think again, most of this stuff is you see even the numbers. For example, the voting numbers for Hispanics. I think it's overwhelmingly support the efforts by the Trump administration to address illegal immigration. And so I think we're so inundated with the noise from the radical Marxists in our society and the control that they have of media and their outlets that we oftentimes lose track of the simple fact that I think the majority of the American people overwhelmingly support most of these common sense issues that are being implemented. I mean, of course we should have a secure border. Of course Medicaid funds shouldn't go to funding illegal immigrants. Of course individuals who want to be on disability should have to document the fact that they are disabled. Of course everybody should agree that 35-year-old men, able-bodied men and women should have to go to work and shouldn't be able to live off of a government dole or should be able to document the fact that they are actually trying to go out there and search for work. Mm-hmm. And these are just common sense reforms that fortunately, I think, again, if you take this in the aggregate, are being implemented. Of course, we should have a border. We shouldn't allow 6,000 people in every day. And incidentally, did you see that statistic? I think it was just the fewest number of individuals are coming across the border, I think, almost ever in decades. Yeah. So there's a lot of good news in all of this, but I think you have to just kind of separate the wheat from the chaff and understand what I think what the American people are understanding, which are just common sense reforms that are necessary to ensure that our liberty is preserved and the American way of life is going to continue for the next 100 years.
Yeah, and don't get me wrong. I wish the immigration process didn't take so long and that it wasn't as expensive, because there are some really good people who are here illegally who I like very much, but I know that they have to go, and I hate it. But one of them just got pregnant and thinks she's safe now because she knows about the anchor baby thing, and that's not a derogatory term. It's a thing. So I don't know what's going to happen with that, but we'll see. But I am fully in on we have to fix the process because it's too difficult. That's bottom line.
Yes, certainly. Introducing efficiencies into the immigration system is a necessary reform that needs to be implemented as soon as possible. But again, ultimately, you have to ensure accountability within the bureaucracies, right? You have to ensure that they hit metrics. And again, I don't have a problem introducing any kind of efficiencies into these systems to ensure that individuals who want to come to this country legally are afforded an opportunity to do so in an expeditious manner. And right. As you just pointed out, Fawn, you made a good point that we should attract the best and the brightest from around the world, and we do attract the best and the brightest throughout the world. Those individuals who want to come here and improve their way of life, improve our way of life, the American dream, follow the American dream. They should be able to afford that opportunity, again, legally, not illegally. And I guess that's where the rubber really meets the road.
That used to be the only way you could get in the country, is if you had something to offer. You don't just get to come and live off of other people. Mm-hmm. And everybody knows that, and yet people just want to argue. So it drives me crazy. But we could do like the liberals do, and just every time you start talking, you could just go, bah! And scream really loud. We could do that and dye our hair green. But Charlie Kirk, I think, says it best. When a kid got up to the microphone, he was Hispanic, and he had some of his family members come across illegally, I do believe, and he doesn't want them to leave, and I don't blame him. But Charlie Kirk said, why do you think it's okay? He goes, because this is a free country and people should be able to come in and blah, 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 blah. He goes, can I come to your house and sit in your living room and you can bring me food and you can wipe my butt and you can do everything for me because, I should be able to go wherever I want to go, right? And the guy goes, you can't do that. And he goes, thank you. You proved my point. So right. It's true.
Yeah, certainly, and it's also imperative here, and this is kind of, let's loop this into back to kind of my daily work, is where does the judiciary come in on this? It's important that the president has the power, that ICE officials have the power to enforce the law. And remember what we heard under the Biden administration? The overwhelming entrances into the country are because we don't have the law. We need comprehensive immigration reform. And by the way, you're seeing that kind of rear its ugly head now again. Mm-hmm. And all Republicans and conservatives simply said, well, we don't need new laws. We just need to enforce existing laws. And certainly that was proven true. But now it's also you have to ensure that these that ICE and other organizations, law enforcement organizations, can do their job. And that's why it's important that the security is provided. And when you see judges try to insert themselves into the system, when the president is, by necessity, utilizing National Guard troops to ensure that ICE can do their job, that you don't want to see judges jumping in and saying, no, you can't do that. And in fact, actually, there's going to be a trial out in California under the Posse Comitatus Act that said that Donald Trump illegally invoked his authority to deploy National Guard troops in California. So that's actually you're seeing more, again, the continuation. Almost in every area we want to talk about, Fawn, you're going to see some sort of lawsuit or some sort of case by, again, what we've said before is these sophisticated NGOs and parties that are well positioned to bring these lawsuits in front of sympathetic judges.
The first time they had a non-peaceful rally and threw a brick through an ICE vehicle, the guard should have been there. Period. Yeah, exactly. End of story. So how do people help with Landmark Legal Foundation, which is the Ronald Reagan Legal Center? I leave that out far too often. Mike, how do they help? Yeah,
just check out our website, landmarklegal.org, and you can check us out on X and Facebook, Landmark Legal Foundation.
I wish we would have had a chance to get into gender ideology, but I'm sorry, we don't have time, but I don't remember what everybody wants me to use as their pronoun. If I see you and you're a boy, I'm saying him. It's that simple.
But we'll have another bite at the apple. There was a decision from SCOTUS last term, and there's going to be another decision. There's going to be another opinion this term, another case this term. So it's going to be teed up. It's certainly something in the legal realm that we'll be in a position to talk about in the future, Fawn.
Okay, we'll have that next time. Mike O'Neill, thank you, sir.
Take care. Have a great day.
You too. Bye-bye. It's crazy how lower courts sticking their nose in every place they don't belong. And yet somehow they still think they're relevant. I think they're even trying to take on stuff the Supreme Court has already ruled on. They are way out of their lane.